Before the rise of science, humanity understood the world through myth, magic, and the movements of the heavens. Ancient monuments were not merely stone and mortar, they were gateways to the divine, instruments designed to channel celestial energy and honor the gods. Sacred geometry shaped their foundations, rituals were performed only under specific stars, and every curve, alignment, and shadow held meaning. To grasp these mysteries today, we must think like an engineer, feel like a mystic, and listen closely to legends carried through time. Deep within the steaming jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, where mist curls around ancient trees and the air trembles with unseen life, lies a mystery that defies reason. Scattered across the forest floor are hundreds of giant stone spheres, so flawlessly shaped and impossibly smooth that they appear to have been carved by machines far beyond the reach of ancient hands. Locals call them Las Bolas, the balls, but this simple name conceals one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Some spheres are small enough to cradle in a palm. Others tower like silent sentinels, weighing more than 16 tons. Carved from some of the hardest stone on earth, their perfection is undeniable, mathematical, deliberate, symmetrical. Too perfect. Too precise. Hidden under layers of soil and time, these spheres whisper of forgotten knowledge, of a craftsmanship that should not have existed, yet clearly did. If you stumbled upon hundreds of perfect stone spheres deep within the Costa Rican jungle, would you believe they were made by ancient hands, or by something far more advanced? The modern story begins in the 1930s, when workers clearing banana fields for the United Fruit Company uncovered several of the spheres buried beneath the jungle floor. When a bulldozer struck the first one, it shattered, revealing no hidden chamber, no inscriptions, no treasure. Just solid stone. Since then, more than 300 spheres have been found throughout southern Costa Rica, each a silent testament to a civilization whose methods are still unknown. Archaeologists attribute them to the Pre-Columbian Diquis culture, active between 600 and 1000 CE. But that timeline poses a troubling question: how could a society with no metal tools carve some of the hardest rocks known to humanity into perfect spheres? Most were crafted from granodiorite and gabbro, stones as tough as granite. Even with today's power tools, shaping such material into near-perfect spheres would require specialized equipment and tremendous labor. Achieving this by hand would demand deep knowledge of geometry, precision measurement, and extraordinary patience. Yet no chisels, templates, or measuring devices from the period have ever been found. No workshops. No unfinished spheres. No evidence of the method. Nothing. Some scholars suggest that the artisans used fire to heat the stone and cold water to crack the surface, followed by years of grinding with sand and river stones. Others propose plant-based polishing pastes or long-term abrasion over wooden frames. But even these theories require decades of work, decades for a single sphere. And hundreds were made. The precision is even more astonishing under modern examination. Many of the larger spheres deviate from perfect roundness by less than 2 mm, a tolerance that rivals modern industrial machining. The symmetry, curvature, and balance are so exact that replication using only Stone Age tools has consistently failed. Even more intriguing is their placement. The spheres were not left randomly across the land. Many were arranged in geometric patterns, lines, triangles, rectangles, concentric circles, and some appear aligned with solstices, sunsets, and specific constellations. Such arrangements imply advanced astronomical knowledge woven into their design. Transportation poses yet another puzzle. The stones used for the spheres do not originate in the Diquis Delta. They came from mountains dozens of kilometers away. Moving multi-ton stones across rivers, jungles, and uneven terrain without wheels, pack animals, or metal tools would have required careful planning and staggering manpower. How this was achieved remains entirely unknown. And through it all, the spheres remain utterly silent. No carvings. No inscriptions. No symbols explaining their purpose. Were they status markers? Ritual objects? Celestial maps? Representations of the sun, eternity, or cosmic order? Indigenous myths describe roundness as a symbol of wholeness and divine harmony, but nothing definitive survives. In the absence of hard evidence, speculation thrives. Some suggest remnants of a lost advanced culture. Others whisper of Atlantis, ancient energy technology, or geomagnetic beacons aligned with Earth's field. Mainstream science dismisses these ideas, but even conventional explanations remain incomplete. Recent laser scans and photogrammetry confirm the near-perfect geometry of many spheres. The consistency across dozens of examples hints at standardized methods of manufacture, a lost process, a forgotten technology. And tragically, many spheres were damaged or destroyed in the 20th century, hauled away as lawn ornaments, bulldozed for convenience, or broken apart in search of imagined treasures. Each one lost has taken its secrets with it. Today, the surviving spheres stand as one of archaeology's greatest unsolved puzzles, a message carved in stone by a people whose understanding of geometry, craft, and celestial symbolism may have surpassed what we believed possible. Their silence is not empty. It asks a question: what did they know that we no longer do? Many of the great stone spheres did not survive the last century intact. Some were dragged away and used as boundary markers. Others became targets during civil unrest. A few were rolled into rivers or stolen by private collectors. What remains today are scattered fragments of a once grand design, a silent message written in stone, its meaning worn thin by time, neglect, and human carelessness. In 2014, UNESCO declared the stone spheres of the Dequis a World Heritage Site, recognizing not only their cultural value but also the unresolved questions they pose. The designation was both an honor and a challenge, a promise to protect what remains, and a reminder that the mystery persists. Archaeologists continue to excavate and document new spheres, hoping each one might yield a clue. Yet every discovery seems to raise more questions than it answers. Who were the artisans capable of such impossible precision? What tools did they wield? And what purpose justified carving stone into perfect geometry? Were they artists? Astronomers? Engineers? Or something entirely beyond our current understanding? Even with modern technology, laser scanning, 3D modeling, microscopic analysis, the spheres defy our attempts to decode them. They remain as they have always been, perfect, silent, and inexplicable. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps their purpose was not to reveal truths but to remind us of the limits of our own. In every flawless curve is a quiet challenge to modern science, a whisper from deep time saying, "You do not yet know everything." And maybe that is the greatest mystery of all. Far away from the jungles of Costa Rica, hidden among the marble quarries of Naxos, Greece, another enigma rests beneath the sun, the colossal Kouros of Flirio, also known as the Marble Youth of Melanes. At first it appears to be nothing more than an unfinished statue, lying on its back, half buried in the earth. But step closer, and the weight of its mystery becomes almost physical. Who carved it? Why was it abandoned? And how did artisans more than 2,600 years ago achieve such astonishing precision with tools that should not have allowed for it? If you were standing before the sleeping giant of Flirio, untouched since the 7th century BCE, would you see a failed attempt? Or the deliberate preservation of a secret lost to time? The Kouros of Flirio lies in the ancient quarry where it was carved, surrounded by half-cut marble blocks and scars of long-forgotten labor. It is one of the earliest examples of the Kouros type, idealized youthful male figures symbolizing vitality, beauty, and divine perfection. Measuring 5 meters long and weighing over 7 tons, it depicts a nude young man poised in the rigid, formal stance of early Greek sculpture. His limbs remain fused to the body, his legs parallel, and the faint hint of a proto-archaic smile rests upon his unfinished face. Yet its true significance comes not from its form, but from its context. Unlike smaller statues sculpted in workshops, this monument was carved directly inside the quarry itself. It was never moved, never polished, never completed. Instead, it remains exactly where it was born, a monumental question carved in stone. The most accepted explanation is that the statue cracked during carving or extraction, making it impossible to move without destroying it. Others argue it broke during an attempted transport and was abandoned where it fell. But even these theories leave unsettling gaps. Why carve such a massive figure in situ, knowing the risks? Why undertake a sculpture requiring such enormous manpower in an exposed quarry? And why does the incomplete kouros of Flirio display such perfectly balanced proportions, such mathematical harmony, despite being abandoned? It is as if the sculptors possessed an intuitive grasp of stone weight, stress distribution, and geometry beyond what history credits to them. This leads us to the heart of the mystery. Despite being unfinished, the kouros of Flirio demonstrates a level of stoneworking mastery that borders on the unbelievable for its time. Modern engineers who have examined its surfaces and symmetry often admit that the methods used remain partially unexplained. In the 7th century BCE, Greek artisans supposedly worked with bronze chisels, wooden mallets, and occasional emery stones. Yet many surfaces of the Flirio kouros are astonishingly smooth, with transitions between curves and planes so perfect that they appear machined rather than hand-chiseled. Certain cuts are impossibly straight, others follow continuous curves of near mathematical precision. There are areas with no visible chisel marks at all. How did they achieve such perfection without steel tools, power equipment, or measuring devices? Some researchers propose abrasive cords, primitive saws, or sophisticated leverage methods. Others wonder whether ancient craftsmen possessed a deeper understanding of stone behavior, knowledge now lost. Experimental archaeologists attempting to replicate such work using authentic tools have consistently fallen short. And then there are the other unfinished kouroi of Naxos. 3 colossal statues, each abandoned mid-carving. Each following the same extraction method. Each revealing the same mysterious precision. This consistency suggests a standardized system, a set of techniques or knowledge passed down through specialized guilds or inherited from an older, forgotten tradition. Naxos was home to megalithic architecture and marble working centuries before the classical era. Could these statues be echoes of an older technology repurposed for Greek art? Despite its incomplete state, the kouros of Flirio reflects an understanding of human anatomy, weight, and proportion that borders on the philosophical. Early Greek sculptors believed that divine order was expressed through mathematics, that beauty itself was measurable. The proportions of the Flirio kouros echo the golden ratio centuries before it was formalized. Each limb, each angle, each subtle curve reveals intention. Not improvisation. Not mere experimentation. But mastery. A mastery that leaves behind a single question carved in marble: what did they know that we have forgotten? This level of precision suggests that the sculptors of Naxos may have used scaled wooden or clay models, possibly applying a grid system to enlarge the proportions onto massive marble blocks. Such sophisticated pre-planning was long believed to have emerged only in the classical era, during the age of Phidias and Polykleitos. Yet the kouros of Flirio, carved centuries earlier, pushes that timeline backward, challenging everything we thought we knew about the evolution of Greek stoneworking. Some historians and engineers see in these unfinished kouroi the faint echoes of an even older tradition, one that may predate the rise of known Greek civilization. The precision displayed in these statues, along with other enigmatic stonework scattered across the Aegean, has fueled theories of an ancestral lineage of advanced stone carving, inherited from a forgotten Bronze Age culture or perhaps something even more ancient. Skeptics argue that patience and countless hours of manual labor are enough to explain the mystery. Yet even then, questions remain: how did artisans maintain such consistency across multiple quarries? Where were these techniques learned? And why do no written records or technical manuals survive? Oral tradition can preserve stories, rituals, and myths, but not highly technical engineering details. Something more structured must have existed. Some lost methodology. A forgotten science of stone. The abandoned kouros lying motionless for millennia is therefore not just an incomplete sculpture. It is a record of human brilliance without an instruction manual, a silent testament to knowledge we no longer possess. Amid the olive groves of Naxos, the kouros of Flirio still rests upon the stone from which it was born, its marble shimmering silver in the sun. It is human and divine, unfinished yet eternal. Its incompleteness feels sacred, a dialogue frozen between sculptor and stone, a moment of creation suspended in time. Every chisel strike, every untouched surface, carries the quiet echo of a civilization reaching toward perfection. The Kouros of Flirio transcends the borders of archaeology and art. It symbolizes both the ambition and the limitations of human achievement. Whether the product of lost technology or the pinnacle of archaic craftsmanship, it continues to astonish the modern world. On the island of Naxos, 3 great Kouroi lie beneath the Aegean sky, silent relics of abandoned dreams. Perhaps they were meant for temples, processions, or rituals now forgotten. Perhaps hidden cracks betrayed their makers. Yet in their stillness, they speak of something deeper, humanity's eternal longing to create, to understand, to reach beyond itself. The Kouros of Flirio endures as a timeless emblem of mystery and aspiration. And now our story dives beneath the sea. Beneath the murky green waters of Abu Kurbay, near the coast of Alexandria, lies a city swallowed by time. Once known as Thonis Heraclean, it was a radiant jewel of ancient Egypt, a center of trade, religion, and power as luminous as any city along the Nile. Then, one day in the distant past, it vanished. An entire metropolis erased from the surface of the earth, leaving behind only whispers and questions. If an entire city could disappear beneath the sea overnight, would you blame nature, or something far beyond our understanding? For centuries, Thonis Heraclean existed only in ancient texts, brief mentions by Herodotus, scattered references in Greek accounts. Many believed it was myth. But in 2000, explorer Frank Gaudio stunned the world when he uncovered its remains lying nearly 10 meters underwater, preserved beneath layers of Nile mud and sea sand. A lost city had returned, astonishingly intact. Beneath the silt, divers discovered colossal statues of pharaohs, the goddess Isis, and the god Hapi, each standing up to 5 meters tall, carved from massive granite blocks weighing dozens of tons. The detail is breathtaking. Every fold of fabric, every carved symbol, every serene expression remains sharp, as if the statues had slept beneath the sea waiting to be awakened. Nearby lies the submerged temple of Ammonius Jerub, once alive with rituals to the gods of the Nile. Underwater lights reveal walls, columns, docks, canals, and streets, an entire sacred landscape preserved in a shimmering twilight realm. Thonis Heraclean was Egypt's great maritime gateway to the Mediterranean. Greek, Phoenician, and Egyptian merchants crossed paths here, exchanging gold, spices, ideas, even languages. Archaeologists have found coins, amulets, ritual vessels, and bilingual inscriptions, proof of a world where cultures blended seamlessly. Yet the greatest mystery of Thonis Heraclean is not its wealth, but its disappearance. Why did one of Egypt's most powerful cities sink beneath the sea? Theories abound, but none fully satisfy. One widely accepted explanation is that Thonis Heraclean was built on soft, water-saturated soil, Nile sediment deposited over millennia. Heavy temples and statues may have compressed the land until the city slowly sank. But this theory faces a major problem. If the sinking was gradual, why are the colossal granite statues still perfectly upright, uncracked, and aligned? The city appears to have descended as a single unit, intact, undisturbed. Others propose an earthquake or tsunami. Ancient Egypt lay along seismic zones, and a powerful tremor followed by a Mediterranean tsunami could have overwhelmed the city. But again, there is a mystery: where are the signs of destruction? There are no major fractures, no toppled statues, no scattered debris. Instead, Thonis Heraclean seems to have been swallowed whole. This brings us to a phenomenon known as soil liquefaction, where water-saturated sand turns to liquid during an earthquake, causing everything above it to sink straight downward in minutes. Some researchers believe this is exactly what happened. The earth beneath Thonis Heraclean briefly turned to liquid, pulling the entire city beneath the waves, intact, upright, silent. Like Atlantis, but real. If this phenomenon occurred across the entire Thonis Heraclean region, hundreds of hectares of saturated delta soil, the ground could have collapsed in a single catastrophic moment, pulling the whole city downward without requiring a tsunami or flood. Some geologists suggest that underground gas pockets or hidden cavities beneath the settlement might also have triggered this sudden collapse, much like the enormous sinkholes that appear today in Guatemala, China, or Florida. Another theory proposes that a dramatic rise in sea level contributed to the city's submersion. An episode of ancient glacial melting or a major shift in the Nile's course could have allowed seawater to push deep into the delta, softening the ground and causing large-scale subsidence. But geological studies reveal that sea level changes in this region were not significant enough to engulf an entire metropolis. This only deepens the mystery. If it wasn't an earthquake, if it wasn't liquefaction, if it wasn't rising seas, then what swallowed Thonis' Heraclean whole? One of the most chilling clues lies in the untouched arrangement of artifacts. Objects remain exactly where they were left, statues upright, offerings still in place, shipwrecks moored beside buildings with their cargo intact. Nothing is scattered. Nothing is broken by waves or violent impact. This suggests one thing: the city did not fall. It sank. Straight down. So suddenly that its residents never even had time to flee. Today, when archaeologists dive beneath the cloudy waters, they are stepping into a world frozen in time. Giant statues still rise from the seafloor as if guarding the silence. Greek coins rest undisturbed on ancient tiles. Wooden ships lie intact as though abandoned only yesterday. The preservation is extraordinary, almost unnatural. Could a unique underwater environment have sealed the city perfectly for over 2 millennia? Or was Thonis' Heraclean's destruction something far stranger? To many scholars, this city has become Egypt's own Atlantis, a real metropolis swallowed by the sea, not a legend. Some even argue that its sudden disappearance may have inspired Plato's tale of Atlantis, whose story describes a prosperous civilization erased by the ocean in a single night. If so, Thonis' Heraclean is not just an archaeological site, it is a bridge between myth and history, a reminder that legends often begin as memories of real catastrophes. Scientists continue to map the city, reconstruct its streets, and recover its treasures. Hundreds of artifacts have been restored and displayed in Alexandria and Paris. Yet more than 90% of Thonis' Heraclean remains hidden beneath the mud, an underwater museum untouched by time. Divers armed with sonar and lights follow the paths of ancient canals, exploring temples, ships, and inscriptions that have slumbered in darkness for over 2,000 years. And still, the greatest question remains unanswered: what truly caused Thonis' Heraclean to collapse and vanish? Was it a natural disaster? A rare geological event? Or something beyond the reach of modern science? For now, the truth lies beneath layers of silent mud waiting for discovery. Perhaps it is that very silence that makes Thonis' Heraclean one of humanity's most haunting stories, a reminder that even the mightiest civilizations can disappear in an instant, swallowed by forces they never saw coming. Deep in the red soils of central Nigeria, buried beneath centuries of erosion and forgotten history, archaeologists unearthed something that would forever change the story of early sub-Saharan Africa: the terracotta sculptures of the Nok culture. These ancient figures, with their elongated necks, triangular eyes, and haunting expressions, stand as silent guardians of a civilization that flourished more than 2,500 years ago and then vanished without a trace. Who were the Nok? Why did they sculpt these strange, graceful beings with swan-like necks? And what purpose did these statues serve in a world that left us no cities, no writing, and no answers? Discovered by accident in the 1920s during tin mining operations near the village of Nok, the terracotta figures have fascinated scholars ever since. Radiocarbon dating places the Nok civilization between 1500 BCE and 300 CE, one of the earliest known complex societies in West Africa, predating Ghana and Mali by more than a millennium. Their artistry is astonishing. Each piece was molded from fine-grained clay, fired at temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, and adorned with detailed jewelry, headdresses, and weapons. Such mastery implies sophisticated knowledge of materials and kiln technology, comparable to innovations emerging elsewhere in the world centuries later. But among all the artistic brilliance, one feature stands out: the elongated necks. Some statues stretch their necks to proportions impossible for any human, 3 or 4 times natural length. Why? Some scholars see this as stylization, a cultural expression of beauty, elegance, or spiritual elevation. Others believe the neck was symbolic, a representation of status or divine connection. Across many cultures, the neck is seen as a bridge between the body and the spirit, a channel linking the earthly and the sacred. Perhaps, for the Nok, the elongated neck symbolized exactly that, a conduit between humans and the divine. Recent excavations reveal something even more mysterious. The long neck motif isn't rare, it is consistent, appearing across dozens of sites and hundreds of figures. Many statues stand with poised, upright postures, gazing forward as though in ritual awareness. Neck rings or beads carved into the clay further emphasize their significance. This repetition suggests a deep cultural meaning, possibly ancestral veneration, spiritual guardianship, or depictions of revered beings. Some statues were found beside human remains, hinting at funerary or ritual use. Others were discovered intentionally broken, as if they were ritually killed once their purpose was fulfilled, a practice seen in many ancient cultures. Yet some theories reach even further. Anthropologists note striking similarities between Nok long-necked figures and later traditions among Central African groups like the Mangbetu, who practiced neck elongation and cranial modification as symbols of beauty, nobility, and status. Could the Nok have been their cultural ancestors? Or did they inherit a far older symbolic tradition now lost to time? And then comes the most unsettling possibility: what if the statues were modeled after beings that once walked among them, whether real, ancestral, mythical, or something we can no longer comprehend? The Nok left no written records. No chronicles. No monuments other than their terracotta guardians. Yet these statues speak in a language of proportion and symbolism that feels deliberate and profound. They are messages from a vanished world. And we have only begun to decipher them. The uncanny realism in Nok sculpture makes the mystery even deeper. Their artists clearly observed human anatomy with care: muscles, joints, hairstyles, and jewelry are rendered with precision. Nothing about their work is abstract or careless. So why distort only the neck? Why stretch it to impossible proportions unless they were depicting something, or someone, that truly existed in their world? But the heart of the enigma lies not in anatomy. It lies in the absence of context. The Nok left behind no written language, no temples, no monumental cities, nothing that resembles an urban civilization. Their communities appear to have been small agricultural villages, yet their art speaks of a far more complex worldview. Their statues hint at ritual, hierarchy, philosophy, and spiritual depth that surpass what their material footprint suggests. The terracotta figures may have been expressions of an unwritten theology, ideas preserved not on scrolls or tablets, but in clay and fire. Some archaeologists believe the elongated neck figures were intermediaries between the living and the ancestral realm. In this interpretation, the long neck symbolizes a connection between worlds, a spiritual bridge stretching from the physical to the celestial. In many African traditions, ancestors do not vanish, they exist in a parallel realm, influencing the living. The Nok figures may have served as conduits for this ancient cosmology, placed in shrines or sacred spaces to channel messages between realms. Others point to evidence of social hierarchy. Many long-necked figures are adorned with elaborate jewelry, ornate hairstyles, and regalia that may signify nobility or priestly authority. Perhaps they portrayed chiefs, priestesses, or legendary heroes, immortalized in clay to preserve their influence even after death. The craftsmanship is too refined, too intentional, to have been mere decoration. These statues were symbols of identity, power, and memory. Then, around 300 CE, the Nok civilization vanished. The furnaces went cold. Villages were abandoned. The terracotta figures stopped appearing. There is no sign of invasion or war, only an eerie silence in the archaeological layers. Some believe climate change dried the once fertile lands. Others propose epidemics or the collapse of trade networks. Yet none fully explain how a culture capable of breathtaking artistry simply disappeared. Today, their legacy survives only in fragments of clay, mute echoes of a lost civilization. To make matters worse, most Nok artifacts were unearthed by accident during mining operations, many ripped from their original context. Looting spread them across the world, scattering their story into private collections and museum vaults. Without context, without knowing where each statue stood, what it was buried with, or what rituals surrounded it, every interpretation becomes speculation suspended between archaeology and myth. But modern science is slowly lifting the veil. Thermoluminescence dating confirms many sculptures are over 2,000 years old. Microscopic analysis reveals soot, ash, and organic residues, evidence of rituals involving fire and offerings. Even more astonishing, traces of red ochre, black carbon, and white kaolin show that these statues were once painted in vivid colors. Imagine a ceremonial night thousands of years ago, long-necked figures glowing in red and white beneath flickering torchlight, their hollow eyes alive with shadow, silent participants in rites we no longer understand. The Nok statues remind us that Africa's ancient past is far older, deeper, and more complex than many realize. Long before written records, the Nok crafted works of profound symbolism, figures whose necks stretched toward the heavens as if reaching for forgotten truths. Were they gods? Ancestors? Spiritual messengers? Or ideals of beauty beyond our modern imagination? Perhaps their meaning was never meant to be explained, only felt. A message in clay and fire still echoing across millennia. Beneath the rugged heart of Iran's Zagros Mountains lies a place so ancient and so enigmatic that time itself seems to hesitate at its entrance, the Visha Caves. Cloaked in silence and shadow, this subterranean labyrinth defies every attempt to explain its origin. The walls bear markings clearly made by intelligent hands, geometric carvings and symbols that seem to hum with forgotten energy. Step closer, and you don't merely enter a cave. You cross a threshold where myth, science, and the unknown intertwine. Do you believe these carvings were made by a lost human civilization, or by something far older? The first recorded survey occurred in the mid-20th century when Iranian geologists stumbled across a narrow entrance hidden in the dark limestone cliffs. Since then, the Visha caves have drawn scientists for one reason: nothing about them feels natural. Inside, the tunnels weave across multiple levels, opening into massive chambers with dome-shaped ceilings. Polished walls, perfectly cut steps, straight corridors, and stacked stone blocks reveal unmistakable human, or something like human, engineering. Some archaeologists believe this might have been a ritual complex dating back thousands of years before the earliest Persian empires. But the true mystery lies in the undeciphered inscriptions carved deep within the stone. Long sequences of symbols cover the walls, neither random nor decorative. Some resemble Sumerian cuneiform, others swirl in spirals reminiscent of early Mesopotamian ritual motifs. Yet together they form a writing system that matches no known language on Earth. The carvings themselves are impossibly precise. Deep, uniform grooves imply advanced metal tools. Some lines run perfectly horizontal, others curve in sacred geometries, circles, spirals, and shapes resembling suns, crescents, and open eyes, motifs long associated with divinity, light, rebirth, and protection. Linguists have compared the symbols to Elamite proto-writing, Hittite hieroglyphs, and even early Indus script. None match. Visha seems to belong to no culture we know, and perhaps to one we have forgotten. The Visha symbols seem to follow a logic entirely their own. Curved and angular marks interlock like equations rather than sentences, suggesting a conceptual system rather than a phonetic one. Some archaeologists believe these carvings represent an independent writing system, a sacred, ceremonial code developed by a vanished culture to record cosmic events, rituals, or esoteric knowledge. It may not have been intended for human reading at all, but for dialogue with the divine, or for preserving truths meant to survive the collapse of civilizations. In the late 1990s, Iranian archaeologist Hussein Alazad proposed one of the most compelling theories. According to him, Visha was once a sacred center for a pre-Zoroastrian priesthood devoted to the worship of light and celestial forces. The enigmatic carvings, in this interpretation, were not a written language but an elaborate system of astronomical codes, used to track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Alazad's team observed that many symbols align precisely with the points where sunlight enters the chambers during solstices and equinoxes. Such exactness, he argued, could not be accidental. To him, Visha was an ancient observatory, a place where science and ritual merged, and where priests sought divine guidance through the geometry of the heavens. Not all scholars agree. Researchers from the University of Tehran propose an entirely different possibility, that the carvings form a coded archive, a symbolic database meant to preserve scientific or philosophical knowledge. The precision of each line, the uniform spacing, and the overlapping layers of inscriptions, added across different generations, suggest deliberate calculation rather than artistic expression. This leads to a provocative idea: Visha may be a stone library, an encrypted record of a lost intelligence whose legacy survives only in symbols cut deep into the mountain. Strangely, nothing like the Visha symbols has ever been found elsewhere. No pottery shards, no monuments, no settlements share their markings. This raises an unsettling question: was Visha a secluded sanctuary, accessible only to an initiated few who understood the language of the gods? The mystery deepens with the discovery of metallic artifacts in the deeper chambers, knives, bracelets, and smelting tools containing metal alloys far more refined than anything known from the region's early history. Laboratory tests reveal copper and iron of astonishing purity, crafted with techniques centuries ahead of their time. Some researchers now believe the carvings may encode metallurgical formulas, a secret knowledge of fire and metal preserved in stone. Despite decades of exploration, only about 30% of the cave system has been mapped. The remaining passages are too unstable, collapsing frequently and swallowing light and sound. Explorers report eerie silence, thin air, and strange echoes, almost like distant whispers. Locals insist the caves are guarded by ancient spirits, and folklore calls the site Miri Visha, the cave of holy light. According to legend, the god Mitra once descended here to teach humanity the balance between light and darkness. Some villagers claim that during full moons, a faint blue glow still pulses deep inside, as if the symbols themselves remain alive. Visha is protected today by Iranian authorities. Its terrain is treacherous, and access to deeper chambers is strictly limited. International teams request permits yearly, but few are granted. All attempts at deciphering the inscriptions have failed. Each expert proposes a different hypothesis, none definitive. Visha remains a rupture in humanity's historical record, a place where geology, spirituality, and forgotten knowledge converge into a single, unresolved enigma. Across the windswept plains of the Absheron Peninsula, where the Caspian Sea meets desert, a different mystery once burned against the night. For thousands of years, tongues of fire rose from the earth, unceasing and unmoved by wind or rain. Around these eternal flames, ancient peoples built temples, altars, and stone enclosures, monuments dedicated to a power that seemed alive. These are the fire temples of Azerbaijan, among the most enigmatic sacred sites in the ancient world. And despite centuries of study, no one truly knows who built the first of them, or why. If flames burned endlessly for millennia, who do you think raised the temples around them, ancient humans, or a forgotten civilization? The most famous of these sanctuaries is the Ateshka of Baku, the House of Fire. Set upon land still breathing natural gas, the complex rises like a geometric fortress, a pentagonal courtyard surrounding a central altar where eternal flames once danced. The architecture blends Persian symmetry with Indian ritual symbolism. Around the courtyard stand small stone cells, spaces where priests meditated, merchants rested, and pilgrims watched the sacred fire cast trembling shadows across the walls. To stand there at night, beneath a dark Caspian sky, is to feel the presence of something older than any scripture. But the question that haunts scholars is simple: who built Ateshka, and what faith did they truly serve? Some argue it was created by Zoroastrian priests, guardians of Ahura Mazda, who saw fire as the purest form of divine truth. In this view, the natural flames were not geologic accidents but sacred manifestations of cosmic purity. The temple may have been part of a vast network of fire sanctuaries stretching across ancient Persia. Carved into the walls of Ateshka are inscriptions in Sanskrit and Devanagari, languages of the Indian subcontinent. Alongside them are the sacred symbol Om and depictions of Agni, the Hindu god of fire. These markings, found nowhere else in the Caucasus, suggest that the temple was once used by Hindu or Sikh merchants who traveled the Silk Road and settled in Baku during the 17th and 18th centuries. To them, fire was a purifier, a messenger, a bridge to the divine. Some historical accounts even describe Indian communities calling this land Agnistan, the place of fire. And yet, the mystery deepens. Beneath the visible structure of Ateshka lie older foundations, built in a completely different style, consistent with pre-Islamic Persian architecture more than 1,000 years earlier. Layers of stone and ash hint that the temple we see today was constructed atop a much older sanctuary, whose builders left no inscriptions, only scorched earth and melted clay. Radiocarbon analysis reveals traces of intense ritual fires dating back over 2 millennia, long before Indian pilgrims ever arrived. So what came first? Was Ateshka originally a Zoroastrian fire temple later adopted by Indian travelers? Or was it a multicultural shrine from the beginning, a place where different peoples, beliefs, and gods shared the same flame? Centuries of reconstruction have blurred the answers. Each generation built over the last, turning Ateshka into a palimpsest of faiths, a sanctuary where spiritual traditions merged in a blaze of sacred symbolism. The mystery only widens when we look beyond Baku. Across Azerbaijan, other fire sites, like Yanar Dag, the burning mountain, display the same inexplicable phenomenon. Flames burst directly from exposed rock, fed by natural gas rising through unseen channels. For ancient peoples, this was not geology, this was revelation. The earth itself seemed to breathe flame. Travelers wrote of pilgrims kneeling in awe, their faces glowing red in the sacred firelight, chanting prayers that rose with the smoke. To them, these flames were alive, reminders of gods who walked the earth. Modern science explains the gas, yet even today geologists cannot fully clarify why the fire at Yanar Dag burns so steadily, or why it never spreads or dies, even after storms and seasons. Local legends claim these flames marked the footsteps of divine beings, some say lit by Zoroaster himself as he traveled west teaching the worship of fire and light. And still, the archaeological evidence remains incomplete. Excavations around Ateshka reveal relics spanning centuries, Persian coins, Indian amulets, Arab pottery, Russian trade items. Every culture that passed through Azerbaijan left something behind. One archaeologist described the site perfectly, a sacred relay race, each generation receiving the flame, yet never knowing who first lit it. The architecture of the fire temples only deepens the enigma. Every detail of Ateshka seems to express an ancient philosophical blueprint. Its walls follow perfect symmetry. Its arches echo old Persian temples. The central altar aligns precisely with the rising sun, inviting dawn to greet flame. This structure reflects both Zoroastrian cosmology, where light embodies truth, and the solar geometry of the Vedas, symbolizing rebirth and divine power. The uncanny resemblance between Persian and Indian sacred architecture suggests that the builders understood astronomy and solar cycles with extraordinary accuracy. Ateshka is not merely a temple, it is a stone instrument calibrated to the heavens. When European travelers rediscovered it in the 19th century, many described Ateshka as a temple of lost gods. Some even believed it predated Hinduism and Zoroastrianism entirely. According to one theory, it may be the final remnant of an ancient Pan-Asian fire cult, a proto-religion that worshipped flame as humanity's first deity, a symbol of life, death, purification, and transformation. If this is true, the fire temples of Azerbaijan are not just relics of one culture, they are echoes of humanity's earliest spiritual impulse. Even after the natural gas beneath Eteshka ran dry in the 19th century and the ancient flame died, locals claimed to see faint, ghostly lights flickering in the courtyard. They called them the souls of the keepers of fire, refusing to believe the sacred energy had vanished. When the site was restored as a museum in 1950, engineers reignited the altar using piped gas. But visitors say the new fire feels different. The old flame, they whisper, was alive. Today, the fire temple stands silent but unbroken, shrines to a mystery older than recorded history. Their stones speak in many languages, yet the origin of those voices remains unsolved. Were they Zoroastrian sanctuaries later shared by Indian pilgrims? Indian temples built atop ancient Persian ruins? Or the final embers of a forgotten civilization whose only god was flame? Whatever the truth, the fire has always united those who gathered around it, merchants, monks, travelers, and seekers from across Asia. Beneath the blackened stones of the fire temples lingers a question as old as humanity: who first lit the flame? And what were they searching for in its light? Hidden among the dry hills of Azerbaijan, between the Caspian Sea and the shadowed spine of the Caucasus, lies one of the most haunting archives of prehistoric humanity, the Gubustan rock carvings. Over 6,000 figures etched into more than 100,000 slabs of stone, hunters, dancers, ships, suns, animals, gods. They whisper from another age. Yet the greatest mystery of Gubustan is not what is carved, but who carved them. Archaeologists have examined every line etched into Gubustan's ancient cliffs, hoping to trace them back to a known culture. But the truth is unsettling: no one knows who the artists of Gubustan were. They appeared suddenly in this desert-like region, carved thousands of images that feel both deeply human and strangely otherworldly, and then vanished without a trace. No settlements. No tools. No burials. Only their messages in stone remain, silent witnesses to a civilization erased from memory. Who truly created these carvings? The ancestors of humankind, or a completely forgotten civilization? When Gubustan was first documented in the 1930s, researchers believed it was just another Stone Age site. But as excavation continued, the mystery only grew. Some carvings date back over 40,000 years, to an era when ice sheets still covered much of the world. Yet unlike the crude marks typical of that time, these images are strikingly sophisticated: tall human figures with elegant posture, animals rendered with precision, and sprawling panels that depict entire narratives. Some show hunting scenes, with men chasing aurochs and wild goats. Others portray ritual dances, circles of people raising their arms toward the heavens, as if calling to something unseen. Still others depict long, narrow boats cutting across stylized waves, fleets on a sacred journey. Every line is deliberate. Every panel feels charged with meaning. And yet, when scientists searched for evidence of who made them, they found nothing. It was as if the people of Gubustan existed only long enough to carve their visions into stone, and then stepped out of time. The mystery of identity haunts every study of the site. The artwork spans tens of thousands of years, from the Upper Paleolithic to the Bronze Age. But the style does not evolve as one might expect. Some carvings look primitive. Others appear almost modern, drawn by someone who understood anatomy, proportion, and motion long before such knowledge is supposed to have existed. This inconsistency raises an unsettling possibility: perhaps multiple cultures visited Gubustan over millennia, each adding to its sacred canvas. Yet the symbolism is too consistent: the same solar disks, the same graceful human silhouettes, the same boats, as if guided by a single tradition passed down through generations, or belonging to a lost culture that persisted outside known history. At times, Gubustan feels less like an archaeological site and more like a message from an unknown world. The carvings show beliefs and practices that don't fit neatly into our understanding of early humans. Were these nomads from Mesopotamia? Seafarers from the Caspian? Or, as bold researchers like Thor Heyerdahl once proposed, the ancestors of the people who would later build the pyramids of Egypt? That theory, far-fetched as it sounds, has an intriguing foundation. One of Gubustan's most famous images shows a long, narrow boat with a curved hull and a row of oars, eerily similar to the papyrus craft of the Nile. Heyerdahl argued that sailors from the Caspian could have voyaged to Africa thousands of years before recorded history. If he was right, Gabuston was not isolated at all, but a prehistoric crossroads, a hub where ancient navigators converged. And if those travelers carried their beliefs, symbols, and myths across continents, then the carvers of Gabuston may be silent ancestors of civilizations far beyond the Caucasus. Yet even this grand theory doesn't explain everything. Some carvings depict animals not native to the region. Others show symbols with no known parallel. Several panels are aligned with the sun's path during solstices and may record lunar cycles. Was this a sacred observatory? A temple to celestial forces? Or a prehistoric chronicle of the sky? Then there is the gavel dash, the singing stone. When struck, it produces deep, resonant tones like a natural drum. Its unique internal structure creates a musical vibration that echoes across the valley. Ancient people clearly knew its secret and used it in rituals. Nearby carvings show dancers in circles, perhaps participating in ceremonies where music, movement, and mythology intertwined. Some believe these were fertility rites. Others think they were shamanic rituals, the first attempts to commune with cosmic powers. But even with modern tools, satellite imaging, 3D scanning, chemical dating, we are no closer to understanding who these people were. Their DNA, if it survives, lies buried somewhere still undiscovered. Their myths evaporated long ago. Their names vanished into dust. Only their art remains, a thread stretching across millennia, connecting us to something ancient, enigmatic, and profoundly human. Perhaps the greatest mystery of Gabuston is not that we cannot identify its creators, but that their absence feels intentional. Unlike other prehistoric groups who left tools, hearths, and bones, these people left only their visions, as if they wanted nothing remembered except what they carved in stone. Some scholars now believe Gabuston may have been a pilgrimage site, a sacred sanctuary where early tribes journeyed across regions to contribute their stories. If so, the carvings may represent humanity's earliest shared culture, an expression of identity that transcended borders long before borders existed. Today, Gabuston stands as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, windswept and timeless. The carvings still shimmer faintly beneath the Caspian sun, humans, animals, boats, symbols, moving forever toward unknown horizons. Looking at them, one senses that someone from tens of thousands of years ago was trying to speak to the future. We lived. We dreamed. We reached beyond ourselves. Or perhaps they were trying to warn us, sending a message across deep time that we have yet to decode. No one knows who carved these images. Ancestors of humanity? Wandering voyagers? Or the last heirs of a civilization lost beyond memory? Yet their message still endures, a voice from the dawn of consciousness asking, who are we? And where did we truly come from? But Gabuston's mystery does not end with its carvings. It stretches outward, into geology, astronomy, folklore, and even the politics of forgotten empires, revealing a place that is less an archaeological site and more a cosmic riddle written on the skin of the earth. As researchers studied the surrounding terrain, they noticed something unexpected. The rock formations themselves are not random outcrops. Many of the cliffs used for carvings face specific directions, east toward the rising sun, or south toward the great arc of the Caspian Sea. Some petroglyph panels align with the exact point where the midsummer sun first touches the horizon. Others appear to frame the moon's highest rise during winter. This level of precision is no accident. It suggests that whoever carved these figures understood the sky with an expertise rivaling early astronomer priests of Mesopotamia or Egypt. Gabuston, in this view, may have been a lunar solar observatory, a place where ancient skywatchers tracked cycles of time, migration of animals, and the shifting seasons, long before agricultural civilizations rose in the Fertile Crescent. Yet this only deepens the contradiction. How could a society capable of such astronomical awareness leave behind no settlements, no tools, no pottery, no graves? It is as though they lived lightly upon the land, existing for generations without ever grounding themselves in a permanent culture, or as if they traveled from elsewhere, using Gabuston only as a ritual and cosmological waypoint. Some researchers propose a stunning possibility: the carvers were transient seafarers, a migratory people who used the Caspian Sea as their ancient road. In this theory, Gabuston was a sacred port of call, a shrine visited by travelers who moved between Europe, Central Asia, Mesopotamia, and perhaps even farther. The carved boats lend weight to this idea. The long, narrow vessels depicted in the cliffs resemble the earliest maritime craft known from Scandinavia, Africa, and the Pacific, suggesting a global pattern far older than previously imagined. If this is true, Gabuston becomes something extraordinary, a prehistoric crossroads where worlds met. A place where myths, technologies, and symbols were exchanged long before writing, farming, or empires existed. But there is a more haunting possibility, one that scholars rarely speak aloud. Some believe Gabuston may be the remnant of a proto-civilization, an early cultural nucleus from which multiple later societies emerged. This would mean that the people who carved these cliffs were not wandering tribes, but the ancestors of multiple ancient cultures, pre-Sumerian, pre-Egyptian, perhaps even pre-Indo-European. In this version of history, Gabuston is not peripheral. It is central, a mother culture erased by time, remembered only in fragments of stone. Local legends echo this idea. Elderly shepherds in the region tell stories of a people of the first dawn, beings who lived before the great floods, who spoke in images and carved the memories of the world into the mountains. According to folklore, these beings were tall, pale, and graceful, moving silently across the land like spirits. They taught early humans how to hunt, how to track the stars, how to speak to nature, and then vanished in a single night when the sea swallowed the plains. Science dismisses such tales as myth. And yet myths are often the ruins of forgotten history. Some petroglyphs show scenes that seem strangely out of place, creatures that resemble giraffes, ostriches, or even kangaroos. Were these imagined? Symbolic? Or evidence that early humans in the Caucasus once witnessed animals long since extinct in this region? If not, then what else did they see? What else did they know? One panel in particular has fascinated researchers for decades: a group of figures with elongated limbs, large circular heads, and radiating lines, interpreted by some as shamans in trance, and by others as depictions of beings not entirely human. It is, of course, impossible to say. But the image has fueled theories that Gabuston's carvers saw, or believed they saw, entities not of this world. And then there is the mystery of silence. Why did they leave no homes, no bones, no traces of daily life? Why only art? Some believe it was intentional. They argue that Gabuston was a ritual landscape, a sacred area never meant for dwelling. Much like later temples or pilgrimage sites, it may have been approached with reverence, a place where ordinary life was forbidden. Others believe these people lived on the shoreline, in temporary wooden structures long since swallowed by rising waters. Geological evidence suggests that the Caspian Sea has risen and fallen dramatically over the last 20,000 years, drowning entire regions beneath its shifting tides. Beneath its waves lie the ruins of unknown settlements, perhaps including the missing villages of Gabuston's carvers. If so, the sea itself may hold the answers. But the answers remain hidden under layers of mud, sand, and time. Modern technologies, sonar imaging, underwater drones, have revealed unusual shapes along the submerged coast, straight lines, rectangular shadows, patterns that look suspiciously like ancient building foundations. Whether they belong to the Gabuston culture is uncertain. But the mere possibility raises a thrilling question: what if Gabuston's lost civilization still lies intact beneath the Caspian Sea? Today, Gabuston remains eerily quiet. The wind whistles through the stone canyons, carrying the scent of salt and dust. The sun casts long shadows over the petroglyphs, making the carved figures shimmer as though alive. Standing there, you feel a presence, a sense that the artists are somehow still watching from behind the veil of time. One cannot help but wonder, What compelled these ancient people to carve the same symbols, the same dances, the same boats for tens of thousands of years? What message were they trying to send us? Some believe Gabuston is a map, a guide to the movement of stars and seasons. Others believe it is a story, a cosmic myth engraved across generations. A few whisper that it is a warning, a record of events long forgotten. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: Gabuston is not just a window into prehistory. It is a mirror, reflecting the human desire to understand who we are, where we came from, and what mysteries shaped our earliest steps on Earth. The people who carved these stones are gone, but their voices echo across millennia. In every human figure, every sun disk, every dancing circle, they remind us, we lived. We dreamed. We reached toward the unknown. Perhaps that, above all, is their message, a message we are only beginning to understand.
До возникновения науки человечество познавало мир через мифы, магию и движение небес. Древние памятники были не просто камнем и раствором, они были вратами к божественному, инструментами, предназначенными для направления небесной энергии и почитания богов. Священная геометрия формировала их фундамент, ритуалы проводились только под определенными звездами, и каждая кривая, линия выравнивания и тень имели значение. Чтобы постичь эти тайны сегодня, мы должны думать как инженер, чувствовать себя мистиком и внимательно прислушиваться к легендам, пронесенным сквозь время. Глубоко в душных джунглях дельты реки Дикис в Коста-Рике, где туман клубится вокруг древних деревьев, а воздух дрожит от невидимой жизни, лежит тайна, не поддающаяся разуму. По лесной подстилке разбросаны сотни гигантских каменных сфер, настолько безупречной формы и невероятно гладких, что кажется, будто они были вырезаны машинами, далекими от досягаемости древних рук. Местные жители называют их лас-балас, шары, но это простое название скрывает одну из величайших загадок археологии. Некоторые сферы настолько малы, что их можно уместить на ладони. Другие возвышаются, словно безмолвные стражи, весом более 16 тонн. Высеченные из одного из самых твердых камней на Земле, их совершенство неоспоримо, математическое, продуманное, симметричное. Слишком идеальное. Слишком точное. Скрытые под слоями почвы и времени, эти сферы шепчут о забытых знаниях, о мастерстве, которое не должно было существовать, но явно существовало. Если бы вы наткнулись на сотни идеальных каменных сфер в глубине джунглей Коста-Рики, поверили бы вы, что они были сделаны древними руками или чем-то гораздо более совершенным. Современная история начинается в 1930-х годах, когда рабочие, расчищавшие банановые поля для United Fruit Company, обнаружили несколько сфер, погребенных под землей джунглей. Когда бульдозер ударил по первой, она разбилась, не открыв ни тайной комнаты, ни надписей, ни сокровищ. Только сплошной камень. С тех пор на юге Коста-Рики было найдено более 300 сфер, каждая из которых является молчаливым свидетельством цивилизации, чьи методы до сих пор неизвестны. Археологи относят их к доколумбовой культуре Дикис, активной между 600 и 1000 годами н.э. Но эта хронология ставит тревожный вопрос: как общество без металлических инструментов могло вырезать идеальные сферы из самых твердых пород, известных человечеству? Большинство из них были изготовлены из гранодиорита и габбро, камней, таких же прочных, как гранит. Даже с сегодняшними электроинструментами придание такому материалу почти идеальных сфер потребовало бы специального оборудования и огромного труда. Достижение этого вручную потребовало бы глубоких знаний геометрии, точных измерений и необычайного терпения. Однако никаких долот, шаблонов или измерительных приборов того периода так и не было найдено. Никаких мастерских. Никаких незаконченных сфер. Никаких свидетельств использования метода. Ничего. Некоторые ученые предполагают, что ремесленники использовали огонь для нагрева камня и холодную воду для растрескивания поверхности, а затем годы шлифовки песком и речными камнями. Другие предлагают полировальные пасты на растительной основе или длительную абразивную обработку о деревянные рамы. Но даже эти теории требуют десятилетий работы, десятилетий для одной сферы. А были изготовлены сотни. Точность еще более поразительна при современных исследованиях. Многие из более крупных сфер отклоняются от идеальной круглости менее чем на 2 мм, допуск, который соперничает с современной промышленной обработкой. Симметрия, кривизна и баланс настолько точны, что воспроизведение с использованием только инструментов каменного века постоянно терпело неудачу. Еще более интригующим является их размещение. Сферы не были разбросаны по Земле хаотично. Многие были расположены в геометрических узорах, линиях, треугольниках, прямоугольниках, концентрических кругах, а некоторые, по-видимому, связаны с солнцестояниями, закатами и определенными созвездиями. Такое расположение подразумевает глубокие астрономические знания, вплетенные в их дизайн. Транспортировка представляет собой еще одну загадку. Камни, используемые для сфер, не происходят из дельты реки Дикис. Они были доставлены с гор в десятках километров отсюда. Перемещение многотонных камней через реки, джунгли и неровную местность без колес, вьючных животных или металлических инструментов потребовало бы тщательного планирования и ошеломляющей рабочей силы. Как этого удалось достичь, остается совершенно неизвестным. И при всем этом сферы остаются совершенно безмольными. Никакой резьбы. Никаких надписей. Никаких символов, объясняющих их назначение. Были ли они маркерами статуса? Ритуальными предметами? Небесными картами? Представлениями Солнца, вечности или космического порядка? Местные мифы описывают округлость как символ целостности и божественной гармонии, но ничего определенного не сохранилось. В отсутствие веских доказательств процветают спекуляции. Некоторые предполагают остатки утраченной развитой культуры. Другие шепчут об Атлантиде, древних энергетических технологиях или геомагнитных маяках, выровненных с полем Земли. Официальная наука отвергает эти идеи, но даже традиционные объяснения остаются неполными. Недавние лазерные сканирования и фотограмметрия подтверждают почти идеальную геометрию многих сфер. Сходство в десятках примеров намекает на стандартизированные методы производства, утерянный процесс, забытую технологию. И, к сожалению, многие сферы были повреждены или уничтожены в 20 веке, вывезены как украшения для газонов, сравнены с землей для удобства или разломаны на части в поисках воображаемых сокровищ. Каждая потерянная сфера уносила с собой свои секреты. Сегодня сохранившиеся сферы представляют собой одну из величайших неразгаданных загадок археологии, послание, высеченное в камне людьми, чье понимание геометрии, ремесла и небесной символики, возможно, превосходило то, что мы считали возможным. Их молчание не пусто. Оно задает вопрос, что знали они, чего больше не знаем мы? Многие из огромных каменных сфер не пережили прошлое столетие в нетронутом виде. Некоторые были утащены и использованы в качестве пограничных знаков. Другие стали мишенью во время гражданских беспорядков. Несколько были сброшены в реки или украдены частными коллекционерами. То, что сохранилось до наших дней, это разрозненные фрагменты некогда грандиозного замысла «Безмолвное послание», высеченное в камне, смысл которого был истончен временем, забвением и человеческой беспечностью. В 2014 году ЮНЕСКО объявила каменные сферы Дикиса объектом всемирного наследия, признав не только их культурную ценность, но и нерешенные вопросы, которые они ставят. Это признание стало одновременно честью и вызовом, и обещанием защитить то, что осталось, и напоминанием о том, что тайна все еще не решена. Археологи продолжают раскопки и документирование новых сфер, надеясь, что каждая из них даст ключ к разгадке. Однако каждое открытие, кажется, вызывает больше вопросов, чем дает ответов. Кто были мастеры, способные на такую невероятную точность? Какими инструментами они владели? И какая цель оправдывала создание идеальной геометрии из камня? Были ли это художники? Астрономы? Инженеры? Или нечто, находящееся за пределами нашего нынешнего понимания? Даже с помощью современных технологий, лазерного сканирования, 3D-моделирования, микроскопического анализа, сферы не поддаются нашим попыткам расшифровать их. Они остаются такими, какими были всегда, совершенными, безмольными и необъяснимыми. Возможно, в этом и заключается суть. Возможно, Их целью было не раскрытие истин, а напоминание нам о пределах наших собственных возможностей. В каждом безупречном изгибе тихий вызов современной науки, шепот из глубин времени, говорящий: «Вы еще не все знаете». И, возможно, это величайшая тайна из всех. Вдали от джунглей Коста-Рики, скрытая среди мраморных карьеров Наксоса, Греция, под солнцем покоится еще одна загадка — колоссальный курос Флерия, также известный как мраморный юноша Меланеса. На первый взгляд он кажется не более чем незаконченной статуей, лежащей на спине, наполовину зарытой в землю. Но шагните ближе, и тяжесть его тайны станет почти физической. Кто вырезал его? Почему он был заброшен? И как мастера более 2600 лет назад достигли такой поразительной точности с инструментами, которые не должны были этого допускать? Если бы вы стояли перед спящим гигантом Флерия, нетронутым с 7 века до н.э., вы бы увидели неудачную попытку. Или преднамеренное сохранение тайны, утерянной во времени. Курос Флерия находится в древней каменоломне, где он был высечен в окружении наполовину отесанных мраморных блоков и шрамов давно забытого труда. Это один из самых ранних образцов типа куроса, идеализированных юношеских фигур, символизирующих жизненную силу, красоту и божественное совершенство. Имея длину 5,5 метров и вес более 7 тонн, он изображает обнаженного юношу, застывшего в жесткой, формальной позе ранней греческой скульптуры. Его конечности сращены с телом, ноги параллельны, а на незавершенном лице блуждает легкий намек на протоархаичную улыбку. Однако его истинное значение заключается не в форме, а в контексте. В отличие от более мелких статуй, созданных в мастерских, этот памятник был высечен непосредственно в самой каменоломне. Его никогда не перемещали, не полировали, не доделывали. Вместо этого он остается именно там, где родился монументальный вопрос, высеченный в камне. Наиболее распространенное объяснение заключается в том, что статуя треснула во время резьбы или извлечения, что сделало невозможным ее перемещение без разрушения. Другие утверждают, что она разбилась при попытке транспортировки и была оставлена там, где упала. Но даже эти теории оставляют тревожные пробелы. Зачем высекать такую массивную фигуру на месте, зная о рисках? Зачем браться за создание скульптуры, требующей стольких трудозатрат, в открытой каменоломне? И почему незаконченный курос из Флерия демонстрирует такие идеально сбалансированные пропорции, такую математическую гармонию, несмотря на то, что был заброшен? Создается впечатление, что скульпторы обладали интуитивным пониманием веса камня, распределения напряжений и геометрии, превосходящим то, что им приписывает история. Это подводит нас к сути тайны. Несмотря на незавершенность, курос из Флерия демонстрирует уровень мастерства обработки камня, граничащий с невероятным для своего времени. Современные инженеры, исследовавшие его поверхности и симметрию, часто признают, что использованные методы остаются частично необъясненными. В 7 веке до н.э. греческие мастера, предположительно, работали бронзовыми долотами, деревянными молотками и иногда наждачными камнями. Тем не менее, многие поверхности куроса из Флерия поразительно гладкие, с переходами между изгибами и плоскостями настолько совершенными, что они кажутся обработанными на станке, а не высеченными вручную. Некоторые срезы нереально прямые, другие следуют непрерывным кривым с почти математической точностью. Есть области, где вообще нет видимых следов от долота. Как им удалось достичь такого совершенства без стальных инструментов, силового оборудования или измерительных приборов? Некоторые исследователи предлагают использовать абразивные шнуры, примитивные пилы или сложные методы рычагов. Другие задаются вопросом, обладали ли древние мастера более глубоким пониманием поведения камня, знанием, ныне утерянным. Археологи-экспериментаторы, пытающиеся воспроизвести такую работу с использованием аутентичных инструментов, постоянно терпели неудачу. А есть еще и другие незаконченные куросы Наксоса. 3 колоссальные статуи, каждая из которых заброшена на середине резьбы. Каждая выполнена по одному и тому же методу извлечения. Каждая обнаруживает одну и ту же загадочную точность. Эта согласованность предполагает наличие стандартизированной системы, набора техник или знаний, передаваемых через специализированные гильдии или унаследованных от более древней, забытой традиции. Наксос был домом для мегалитической архитектуры и обработки мрамора за столетия до классической эпохи. Могут ли эти статуи быть отголосками более древней технологии, переосмысленной для греческого искусства? Несмотря на свою незавершенность, Курос Флерия отражает понимание анатомии человека, веса и пропорций, граничащие с философией. Ранние греческие скульпторы верили, что божественный порядок выражается через математику, что сама красота измерима. Пропорции Куроса Флерия отражают золотое сечение за столетия до того, как оно было формализовано. Каждая конечность, каждый угол, каждый едва заметный сгиб раскрывают замысел. Не импровизацию. Не просто эксперимент. Но мастерство. Мастерство, которое оставляет после себя лишь один вопрос, высеченный в мраморе: что они знали такого, что мы забыли? Такой уровень точности предполагает, что скульпторы Наксоса, возможно, использовали масштабные деревянные или глиняные модели, возможно, применяя сетку для увеличения пропорций на массивных мраморных блоках. Долгое время считалось, что столь сложное предварительное планирование возникло только в классическую эпоху, во времена Фидия и Поликлета. Однако Курос из Флерия, высеченный столетиями ранее, отодвигает эту временную шкалу назад, бросая вызов всему, что мы, как нам казалось, знали об эволюции греческой камнеобработки. Некоторые историки и инженеры видят в этих незавершенных Куросах слабые отголоски еще более древней традиции, которая, возможно, предшествовала расцвету известной греческой цивилизации. Точность, проявленная в этих статуях, наряду с другими загадочными каменными работами, разбросанными по всему Эгейскому морю, породила теории о предковой линии развитой камнерезной традиции, унаследованной от забытой культуры бронзового века или, возможно, чего-то еще более древнего. Скептики утверждают, что терпение и бесчисленные часы ручного труда достаточны для объяснения этой тайны. Но даже в этом случае остаются вопросы: как мастерам удавалось поддерживать такое постоянство в разных карьерах? Где были освоены эти техники? И почему не сохранилось ни одного письменного свидетельства или технического руководства? Устная традиция может передавать истории, ритуалы и мифы, но не высокотехнологичные инженерные детали. Должно было существовать нечто более структурированное. Какая-то утраченная методология. Забытая наука о камне. Заброшенный Курос, пролежавший неподвижно тысячелетиями, это не просто незавершенная скульптура. Это свидетельство человеческого величия без инструкции, безмолвное свидетельство знаний, которыми мы больше не обладаем. Среди оливковых рощ Наксоса Курос Флерия все еще покоится на камне, из которого он был рожден, его мрамор мерцает серебром на солнце. Он одновременно и человеческий, и божественный, незавершенный, но вечный. Его незавершенность ощущается священной, застывший диалог между скульптором и камнем, мгновение творения, застывшее во времени. Каждый удар резца, каждая нетронутая поверхность несет тихое эхо цивилизации, стремящейся к совершенству. Курос Флерия выходит за рамки археологии и искусства. Он символизирует как амбиции, так и ограниченность человеческих достижений. Будь то продукт утраченных технологий или вершина архаичного мастерства, он продолжает удивлять современный мир. На острове Наксос под Эгейским небом покоятся 3 великих Куроса, безмолвные реликвии заброшенных мечтаний. Возможно, они предназначались для храмов, процессий или ритуалов, ныне забытых. Возможно, скрытые трещины выдали своих создателей. Но в своей неподвижности они говорят о чем-то более глубоком, о вечном стремлении человечества творить, понимать, выходить за пределы самого себя. Курос Флерия остается вневременным символом тайны и устремлений. А теперь наша история погружается в морские глубины. Под мутными зелеными водами залива Абукир, недалеко от побережья Александрии, лежит город, поглощенный временем. Когда-то известный как Тонис Гераклеон, он был сияющей жемчужиной Древнего Египта, центром торговли, религии и власти, таким же ярким, как любой город вдоль Нила. Но однажды в далеком прошлом он исчез. Целый мегаполис был стерт с лица земли, оставив после себя лишь шепот и вопросы. Если бы целый город мог исчезнуть под водой за одну ночь, вы бы обвинили в этом природу или нечто, далекое от нашего понимания. На протяжении столетий Тонис Гераклеон существовал только в древних текстах, кратких упоминаниях Геродота, разрозненных ссылках в греческих источниках. Многие считали это мифом. Но в 2000 году исследователь Франк Годдия ошеломил мир, когда обнаружил его останки, лежащие на глубине почти 10 метров под слоями нильского ила и морского песка. Затерянный город вернулся, поразительно нетронутый. Под илом дайверы обнаружили колоссальные статуи фараонов, богини Сиды и бога Хапи, каждая высотой до 5 метров, высеченные из массивных гранитных блоков весом в десятки тонн. Детализация захватывает дух. Каждая складка ткани, каждый резной символ, каждое безмятежное выражение лица остаются четкими, как будто статуи спали на дне моря, ожидая пробуждения. Рядом находится затопленный храм Амона-Гериба, некогда живой ритуалами в честь богов Нила. Подводные огни освещают стены, колонны, доки, каналы и улицы, целый священный ландшафт, сохранившийся в мерцающем царстве сумерек. Тонис Гераклеон был великими морскими воротами Египта в Средиземное море. Греческие, финикийские и египетские купцы пересекались здесь, обмениваясь золотом, специями, идеями и даже языками. Археологи нашли монеты, амулеты, ритуальные сосуды и двуязычные надписи «Доказательства мира», где культуры смешивались плавно. И все же величайшая загадка Тониса Гераклеона заключается не в его богатстве, а в его исчезновении. Почему один из самых могущественных городов Египта затонул? Теорий предостаточно, но ни одна из них не является полностью убедительной. Одно из широко принятых объяснений заключается в том, что Тонис Гераклеон был построен на мягкой, насыщенной водой почве нильских отложениях, отлагавшихся на протяжении тысячелетий. Тяжелые храмы и статуи, возможно, сжимали землю, пока город медленно не затонул. Но эта теория сталкивается с серьезной проблемой. Если погружение было постепенным, почему колоссальные гранитные статуи все еще стоят совершенно вертикально, без трещин и выровнены? Город, по-видимому, погрузился целиком, нетронутым, неповрежденным. Другие предполагают землетрясение или цунами. Древний Египет располагался вдоль сейсмических зон, и мощное землетрясение, за которым последовало средиземноморское цунами, могло бы захлестнуть город. Но снова остается загадка, где признаки разрушения. Нет ни крупных трещин, ни поваленных статуй, ни разбросанных обломков. Вместо этого Тонис Гераклеон, похоже, был целиком поглощен. Это подводит нас к явлению, известному как разжижение почвы, когда насыщенный водой песок превращается в жидкость во время землетрясения, в результате чего все, что находится над ним, за считанные минуты погружается вниз. Некоторые исследователи считают, что именно это и произошло. Земля под Тонис Гераклеоном на короткое время превратилась в жидкость, утянув под волны весь город, нетронутым, стоящим вертикально, безмольным. Как Атлантида, но настоящее. Если бы это явление произошло во всем регионе Тонис Гераклеон, сотни гектаров насыщенной дельтовой почвы, земля могла бы обрушиться в один катастрофический момент, потянув весь город вниз без цунами или наводнения. Некоторые геологи предполагают, что подземные газовые карманы или скрытые полости под поселением также могли спровоцировать это внезапное обрушение, подобно огромным провалам, которые сегодня появляются в Гватемале, Китае или Флориде. Другая теория предполагает, что резкое повышение уровня моря способствовало затоплению города. Эпизод таяния древних ледников или значительный сдвиг в русле Нила могли позволить морской воде проникнуть глубоко в дельту, размягчив грунт и вызвав масштабное проседание. Но геологические исследования показывают, что изменения уровня моря в этом регионе были недостаточно значительными, чтобы поглотить целый мегаполис. Это только усугубляет загадку. Если это было не землетрясение, если это было не разжижение, если это было не повышение уровня моря, тогда что же поглотило Тонис Гераклеон целиком? Одна из самых пугающих подсказок кроется в нетронутом расположении артефактов. Предметы остаются точно там, где их оставили, статуи стоят вертикально, приношения все еще на месте, обломки кораблей, пришвартованные рядом со зданиями с нетронутым грузом. Ничего не разбросано. Ничего не сломано волнами или сильными ударами. Это говорит об одном: город не пал. Он затонул. Прямо вниз. Так внезапно, что его жители даже не успели спастись. Сегодня, когда археологи ныряют под мутные воды, они ступают в мир, застывший во времени. Гигантские статуи все еще поднимаются со дна моря, словно охраняя тишину. Греческие монеты нетронутыми покоятся на древних плитах. Деревянные корабли лежат нетронутыми, словно брошенные лишь вчера. Сохранность поразительная, почти неестественная. Могла ли уникальная подводная среда идеально запечатать город более 2000 летий? Или разрушение Тониса Гераклеона было чем-то гораздо более странным? Для многих ученых этот город стал египетской Атлантидой, реальным мегаполисом, поглощенным морем, а не легендой. Некоторые даже утверждают, что его внезапное исчезновение, возможно, вдохновило Платона на создание мифа об Атлантиде, чья история описывает процветающую цивилизацию, уничтоженную океаном за одну ночь. Если это так, то Тонис Гераклеон — это не просто археологический памятник, это мост между мифом и историей, напоминание о том, что легенды часто берут начало из воспоминаний о реальных катастрофах. Ученые продолжают составлять карты города, реконструировать его улицы и находить его сокровища. Сотни артефактов были отреставрированы и выставлены в Александрии и Париже. И все же более 90% Тониса Гераклеона остается скрытым под илом, подводный музей, не тронутый временем. Водолазы, вооруженные гидролокаторами и фонарями, исследуют древние каналы, исследуя храмы, корабли и надписи, которые дремали во тьме более 2000 лет. И все же главный вопрос остается без ответа, что на самом деле стало причиной разрушения и исчезновения Тониса Гераклеона. Было ли это стихийное бедствие? Редкое геологическое событие? Или что-то, находящееся за пределами досягаемости современной науки? Пока что истина покоится под слоями безмолвной грязи, ожидая своего открытия. Возможно, именно эта тишина делает Тонис Гераклеон одной из самых захватывающих историй человечества, напоминанием о том, что даже самые могущественные цивилизации могут исчезнуть в одно мгновение, поглощенные силами, которых они не ожидали. Глубоко в красноземных почвах Центральной Нигерии, погребенных под веками эрозии и забытой истории, археологи обнаружили нечто, что навсегда изменило историю ранней Африки к югу от Сахары — терракотовые скульптуры культуры ног. Эти древние фигуры с вытянутыми шеями, треугольными глазами и завораживающим выражением лиц стоят как безмолвные хранители цивилизации, которая процветала более 2500 лет назад, а затем бесследно исчезла. Кто такие ног? Зачем они создавали этих странных, грациозных существ с лебедиными шеями? И какой цели служили эти статуи в мире, который не оставил нам ни городов, ни письменности, ни ответов? Терракотовые фигурки, случайно обнаруженные в 1920-х годах во время работ по добыче олова недалеко от деревни Ног, с тех пор очаровывают ученых. Радиоуглеродное датирование относит цивилизацию Ног к периоду между 1500 годом до НЭ и 300 года НЭ, одно из самых ранних известных сложных обществ в Западной Африке, более чем на тысячелетие старше Ганы и Мали. Их мастерство поразительно. Каждое изделие было отлито из мелкозернистой глины, обожжено при температуре более 1000 градусов по Цельсию и украшено детально проработанными украшениями, головными уборами и оружием. Такое мастерство подразумевает глубокие познания в области материалов и технологии обжига, сопоставимые с инновациями, появившимися в других частях мира столетия спустя. Но среди всего художественного великолепия выделяется одна особенность — удлиненные шеи. У некоторых статуй шеи вытянуты до пропорций, невозможных для любого человека, в 3 или 4 раза больше естественной длины. Почему? Некоторые ученые видят в этом стилизацию, культурное выражение красоты, элегантности или духовного возвышения. Другие полагают, что шея имела символическое значение, символ статуса или связи с божеством. Во многих культурах шея рассматривается как мост между телом и духом, как канал, соединяющий земное и священное. Возможно, для народа Ног удлиненная шея символизировала именно это — канал между людьми и божественным. Недавние раскопки открыли нечто еще более загадочное. Мотив длинной шеи не редкость, он встречается повсеместно, встречаясь на десятках памятников и у сотен фигур. Многие статуи стоят в ровных, прямых позах, устремив взгляд вперед, словно в ритуальном сознании. Ожерелья или бусины, вырезанные на глине, еще больше подчеркивают их значение. Это повторение предполагает глубокий культурный смысл, возможно, почитание предков, духовную опеку или изображение почитаемых существ. Некоторые статуи были найдены рядом с человеческими останками, что намекает на их погребальное или ритуальное использование. Другие были обнаружены намеренно сломанными, как будто их ритуально убили после выполнения своего предназначения, практика, распространенная во многих древних культурах.